So I started my career as a CPA and then morphed into becoming a food addiction treatment person. Actually, it all started when I was 8 years old and I was misdiagnosed with having rheumatic fever and relegated as a condition of treatment. I was relegated to bed for 3 years, which was awful because there was nothing to do. And food became very important in my life. And when they discovered it was a misdiagnosis and I was released from this confinement, I was chubby and very unhappy with my body. Compared myself to my mother, who was very attractive, and I didn't measure up. And so at the age of 15, I asked to be taken to a doctor to see what he could do about my weight. And it was Dr. Kemp, and he prescribed, trying to help me, he prescribed diet medication, which actually was an amphetamine, dexedrine. And I loved them. I loved the way they made me feel. I could move the furniture in the house, and I could not need anybody, and I could deal with my mother's alcoholism and suicidality. And as time went on, I found physicians to keep prescribing these medications. It was an amphetamine. So it really launched me into many years of amphetamine dependence to give me control over my appetite, which was, without the amphetamines, very much out of control. I had started going to Spain for some vacations, and I also learned that I could get these medications over the counter. And it eventually led me, because I'm so much a problem solver, I decided to move to Spain so I wouldn't have issues with getting medication. I was really not aware of it, but I was very addicted to them. And in time, in about 2 years after living there, nothing was working, and I was crashing and burning. Came back 1976, in August of that year, I had no more pills, and I just ate my way and slept my way through a withdrawal process. And I didn't know what to do. I gained 20 pounds in about 2 weeks. And I was fortunate, I guess this was my path, I was fortunate to find a 12-step program that dealt with food. It was called Overeaters Anonymous. And it gave me some structure and some ideas as to how to manage my eating. And it was a solution, temporary, but it was just a brief solution. I was okay with a food plan that they provided, and then not, and then I was good, and then I wasn't. I was very interested in someone who had the business of recovery. I'm an accountant. I'm interested in business, and I'm in recovery now, working so hard on it, and I was very fascinated by what she was doing. And in time, we talked, and she thought it would be a good match for her to partner with myself and to build on the business that she had started. I agreed, and when I started with her, I gave up my practice. I started to develop, learning about addiction, starting to develop a education series that was going to inform all the patients about why they were there, what the problem was, from a different perspective, the problem of eating and being out of control with eating. One of the things I learned by the clients coming into treatment is that they had issues with food. And I thought I had the answer. So I had used some of the material that had been presented to me in my search for help from other professionals. And I incorporated that in the education series. And it was turning out to be quite interesting and very effective to really reflect to people their issues with eating, because when people put down drugs and alcohol, that's not the end of their behavior with substances. Often, now that they're not drinking or using cocaine anymore, they are still looking, they're still in craving. And at that time did not really understand all of that. And they were using food to manage their cravings. It made a lot of sense to them, and it worked, but it wasn't, from my perspective, the answer to what they were trying to solve. Now they had another problem. They're changing deck chairs on the Titanic, but still being on the Titanic. So in time, I started to learn about food addiction from some professionals in the field, which became cemented when the American Society of Addiction Medicine published the answer, the definition of addiction, which heretofore, this was in 2011, which heretofore had not been published. A lot of material out about addiction, but there was not any definitive information. And it really wasn't until the brain imaging technology was used to help these neuroscientists really understand the basis and the genesis of why people behave in ways that are adverse to their lives. Sure, you take a hit of something, you get the pleasure, but it doesn't last, and now you're out running around trying to get that feeling back again. And these neuroscientists published through the American Society of Addiction Medicine what this was all about. There was a lot of work in this small field being done to really understand people's eating issues. The medical community early on, to describe people's bizarre eating behaviors, whether it was what they call bulimia, which is purging, or anorexia, which is starving. How do people do that? And they kind of eliminated the those who can't stop eating. That was seen differently. For some reason, they didn't fit into the category that was created called eating disorders. I think it's all addiction. I think it can be evidenced as all addiction.